welcome to another Zelda podcast. I'm your host, David, and today I'm here with Dan McCoy. Dan is back from our season premiere episode. Dan, welcome back to the show.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? David, how are you today specifically?
Well, thank you so much for asking. I'm in a great mood.
Thank you so much for asking.
Because I really wanted to speak to that.
I was going to say.
We're in full sleepover mode right now.
We had like a slumber party last night. We played a little Harry Potter, played a board game.
Yeah, it's
called
true.
girls on the phone.
or tried to and then got too nervous too and then hung up.
And then they blocked us and now there's a restraining order. It was a whole thing.
I took the train here to St. Louis. I'm in your house. It's a lovely house. First time I've seen it. You've been living here a year or two now, I think.
I think it's been 3.
Wow.
I think we're up to 3 years.
This is the first time I've physically been in. We've hung out plenty of times.
Oh, sure.
But it's a charming house. There's so many cool things in it. But anyway.
I still remember when I moved down here, like we did a video chat and I was just like showing you everything. And the one thing I weirdly remember is I was honestly obsessed with Les Mis at the time. Do you remember that?
Kinda, yeah.
Because I sent you a video of me singing, "Can you hear the people
and you were rotating.
singing the songs of anger?" And like for some odd reason that just really stuck with me. It's like, I need to see if I can find that video. So,
I probably have it in my camera roll. I probably saved it, but
I feel like everyone has their Les Mis like
moment.
Yeah, where they just
What my go-to is every once in a while, every like 6 months, for some reason, it'll be appropriate for the situation for me to be like, "One day more."
Beautiful voice though, nice vibrato on the end.
Yeah. We're sitting here. We just woke up this morning. It's early in the morning, actually.
Yep.
I have full bed head. We're like, you've got an X-Men shirt on. We're blasting to the past right now.
I would wear this regardless of what time it is.
Yeah, well, that's great.
This is just what I wear now.
I'm just feeling like I'm definitely feeling the next morning sleepover vibes, and I'm into it.
Absolutely.
Today we are talking about the Yiga Clan. Dan,
I'm so excited.
We're doing our first deep dive episode together.
This is pretty cool. And so we were going back and forth on what topics we want to do, and this show has been running for so long, and it's got so much quality in it that like. It's sometimes hard for me to come up with an episode that I feel like I can somewhat speak to that hasn't been at least tagged, touched, or revolved around. We were talking back and forth, this, that, and I just was like, well, have we done anything about the Yiga Clan from Breath of the Wild? Because like they're so weird. It's such like it shows up out of nowhere. It's kind of a goofier side, but you can tell that there's some real like beef to the story. Yeah, and he's like, Dan, I don't think we've done a Yiga episode at all. And then we just took off from there.
And I also liked it because both you and I could research it on like, I guess like common ground as fans, because both of us needed to like, with the exception of, in this case for most people, with the exception of obviously interfacing with the Yiga Clan by playing Breath of the Wild.
Absolutely.
Then you have to kind of dive back down into the lore a little bit. But,
and I think they're in Age of Calamity too.
Yes.
So I found that out. So it's not just Breath of the Wild, but I mean, Age of Calamity is a brother to Breath of the Wild.
Age of Calamity. Anything that happens in Age of Calamity is technically not part of the Breath of the Wild timeline because they do a little time travel trick. They Back to the Future to it right in the beginning so they can do whatever they want, and that's a little disheartening.
Holy insanity! Scream calamity.
It takes away from the lore that's in Age of Calamity a little bit, but I was actually speaking with one of our new cast members, Katie, the other day in a production meeting about that actually.
Okay.
And Katie's really enjoys the quote unquote lore in Age of Calamity, and we were talking about it and we realized, you know what? Even if it's not canon or main timeline canon or something like that, you still get to see these characters. They're still acting canonically accurate.
Yeah.
So you get to see them in almost like a what if situation.
Exactly.
And so exploring, if we do explore some of the Yiga in Age of Calamity today, I think that's totally okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Did we want to?
Yes.
Yep.
Listener feedback.
You got it. Listener feedback.
Whoa, man, that's got to be the new song.
I still think you need to get one of those. I don't know what they're called because I'm not super.
Like a sound effects machine or something?
No, like how there's buttons and it's like the same 4. You can just trigger it to where it's like
that's what I'm talking about.
Listener feedback, and then like what? Like just. Like 4 sound effects that you use for everything. Like, oh no, you didn't. Like,
oh damn, I love the creativity. I love the ingenuity. I love the spontaneity. But that is one step too close to like terrestrial radio for me. I don't think I can handle that.
I think you say that now, but like listener feedback, you would love it. You would be like, hold on, guys, let's push the button.
A little, maybe some. Yeah, maybe songs going into these things is kind of cute. I actually like that. That I'm on board for. And it's going to have to be you doing it.
Or like even if it's Zelda based, like opening like the treasure, like like
That's cool.
and you're like, hey, today's the topic is, and you can have that like playing in the background. But you run
Yeah.
your show. I'm not telling you what to do.
No, I hear you. I stay away from the official Zelda sound effects. I only use them sparingly because I don't want to trigger any kind of copyright stuff. But anyway,
yeah, because Nintendo don't play around.
They don't. I think we're scraping right on the edge by even having our name be another Zelda podcast.
I
It is
think-
technically legal,
Yeah.
because you can use the word Zelda. But if we were like the Legend of Zelda podcast, I think we'd be in trouble.
I think they're very aware of us, and they're
I don't know,
just
maybe.
someone's like, listens like one of these days I'm gonna get them. Like, oh, just some Nintendo bigwig sitting in like an office.
But anyway, we're really massive fans, obviously, of Zelda, and so grateful
Oh,
to
yeah,
be able to talk about all
absolutely.
this stuff.
10
Also,
out of
we have
10.
a couple fans here, listeners of AZP, and actually, we're going to do 3 listener feedbacks today. 2 of them are directly from our website. So
Ooh.
if you go to anotherzeldapodcast.com, you can basically create an account,
Okay.
and it allows you to make comments right on the blog posts, right on the website posts, lets you be part of the forums and stuff like that, in addition to like our Discord stuff.
Very cool.
So over the years, people have been logging in more and more and more, and then leaving official comments right on our actual page. So 2 of them today are from that situation. One here is from a person who goes by PBH749.
Sure.
And it's our favorite Cyclops episode. This is an episode I believe I
Oh,
did
this was
with
a good one.
Yeah, I did it with didn't you say you wanted to be a part of that one? I don't know. Someone. I think it was Andy.
I want
wanted
to be a part of all of them. So
all right. So here's our comment on our website. Fun episode. I just got a couple of just a couple of my thoughts. Number 1, no Vadi, and PBH749 is 100% correct.
Oof.
Vadi is a alt villain,
Yeah.
boss, really, in some of the mobile games, the handheld games, I should say. And Vadi is basically just a big eyeball.
Sure.
It's like the most Cyclopsy you can get.
the definition, one eye.
Yeah,
I mean,
single eye, and like maybe it's like some wings sticking out. It's pretty much we totally missed Vadi, and that's absolutely a keen observation. Number 2, the pearl. I remember asking this in the show. I was like Cyclops, Cyclopsi. What's the plural of Cyclops? And according to PBH749, number 2,
Cyclops is
the plural of Cyclops is Cyclopes.
Oh, that sounds accurate.
Spelled, maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong, but spelled Cyclopes.
Is that in like the Odyssey? Is that like where did we pull that from?
It could be. Let's hear back from you.
Like
PB.
Homer's just like, there's one Cyclops, but thank God there's no Cyclopses. Like
Cyclopes.
Cyclopses.
PBH749, if you're hearing this and you want to give us a follow-up comment, I'm all ears, I'm all eyes. Oh,
All eye.
I was trying to, yeah, right, exactly.
See?
And then number 3, I also need to be on the record that I believe the figure in Tears of the Kingdom
Ooh.
is Majora. Now, this comment, Tears of the Kingdom might be out by the time this episode comes out, but we're recording this in a phase where we're still waiting a month or 2 for the game to come out. And this comment was probably made a month or 2 earlier. I mean, I think it's Ganondorf, personally.
Are we talking about the hand?
We're not just, kind of the hand. I mean, there's a few hands in the game right
There's
now.
more than one
There's
hand?
like blue hands, there's zombie hands, there's
Oh.
but I'm talking about the kind of mummified, pseudo-zombie looking character with all the jewelry.
So don't get mad. And like
Yes.
I always, like every episode I am allowed to ask one question that I say like, don't call me an idiot. But who is, I know it's Majora's Mask. I get that. And I've never played the game.
Yeah.
But who is
Majora?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. Majora is never, in my opinion, never really fully physically realized.
Okay.
In the final battle, Majora is an evil, mischievous spirit that is imbued in the mask and can take over the person who wears the mask. It can like take over their I don't know about their body, but their thoughts and their actions. And kind of like possess them, I guess you could say, or infect them. There is in the final battle, you do fight quote unquote Majora, and the mask becomes like Majora's chest, and there's tentacles coming out, and then there's a whole other thing. There's like a couple different phases of quote unquote Majora.
Okay.
But the physical mask, even though it changes shape and scale, is kind of still there. So my interpretation is that we're not actually seeing true Majora in this final battle. I think we're still seeing Majora in the mask, but just kind of materializing wacky physical things.
But do they have like a history? Is it like, were they one of the gods at one point? Like, where do they get their entire power source from? Or is it just like, and then there was an evil spirit named Majora?
I think that's where Majora is right now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So they think that Majora is the Tears of the Kingdom character. And the only entity powerful enough to contain Ganondorf. Oh, that's the logic behind it.
Oh.
And the true chaotic neutral character of the series. Less than 100 days until Tears of the Kingdom. Let's go.
What about Scott Summers? Did you guys talk about Cyclops at all in your favorite?
No, we missed him.
What?
Yeah.
That's unacceptable.
You've got him on your shirt. You have classic? Yeah, you have classic Cyclops
classic.
on your shirt right now.
Yeah, Scott Summers.
Mhm.
Scott was right. Cyclops was right. It's a very important thing to know.
Last but not least, we have a listener feedback from Apple Podcasts.
Did we do 2 from the website?
I think so, yeah.
Oh.
Did I skip?
I thought, did I miss one?
Did I really only do... Oh, thanks. Yeah, you're right. Here's the next one. Erica Donner on
Hey,
the website.
you're welcome,
Keeping
Erica.
track.
You're welcome, Erica.
Keeping track.
I care.
This is a comment left on the top 10 most beautiful places episode. I think this is one I did with Kate. And Erica here says, Hey, AZP team. I started listening a few months ago, and I'm hooked. Love all the topics so far and great energy each of you bring to the table. I personally love the ambiance in Faron Woods from Twilight Princess.
Ooh.
Yes, absolutely. It's a great way. Once you get through the actual introduction, the intro stuff of Twilight Princess, Faron Woods is a really fun place. It's kind of your introduction to the game and what the game's going to feel like, and it's a great entry or a great way to enter the game. The music especially makes it such a special place for me. Oh, well, there we go. Equal parts beautiful and eerie. I concur. I also find Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild to be surprisingly pretty, except for the guardians swarming you. But when the lightning hits right, it's beautiful in all of its dystopian glory. Thanks for all you do, Erica.
Aw.
Yeah,
Thank you, Erica.
I love how Hyrule Castle's portrayed in Breath of the Wild. How it's so big.
Yeah.
Indoors, outdoors, it's an island unto itself.
And-
It's awesome.
And half ransacked. Most of the time, I shouldn't say most, but like whenever we see the castle, it's usually like mostly in pristine condition. Everything's nice, there's things on the walls. And like here, I mean, the main hall may be okay, but you get to those towers and like it's just exposed, from bombs and all that other stuff. So I like seeing the war-torn version of like kind of Hyrule.
I agree, and actually, I'd like to speak to the idea. So you think about Hyrule Castle in Ocarina of Time, and it's you go to see the princess, and it doesn't exactly feel lived in. There's not a lot of detail. It really does feel like you're kind of playing a level. You're sneaking past the guards. Zelda's basically in this courtyard that's really just an octagon.
Yep.
And you never really see other parts of the castle. Some argue that you do see the inside when you go to the castle at the end, but then others argue, well, that's technically transformed into Ganon's castle or Ganondorf's castle, and it's all different. But anyway, that's that is a castle that's not in a dystopia.
Yeah.
And it feels not quite lived in, but of course, 20 years later, the game design has grown so much.
Oh yeah, the things we can do nowadays are just
So even a quote unquote rubble castle, there is so much detail. You feel the people that were living in that castle, all the little books and the bookshelves and the tables,
bookshelves, armor.
It would be so easy it would have been so easy to just like make the whole thing rubble, but they added, I feel like they designed the castle and then took it
tore
away.
It down.
Then
tore it down.
Yeah, it was very cool. I love it. I think it's beautiful too. Thank you for the comment, Erica.
I mean, it even feels like when I was running through it, like I thought like once I defeat Ganon and everything's fine, like it's going to be like that whirlwind of fixing things, where it's like, all the stones get put back.
That would be cool.
But I mean, Zelda doesn't really ever let you do that.
There's not a single Zelda game that has an after game.
Yeah, it's like you can't defeat him and then continue the game and like, oh, I fixed it and I'm going to hang out with Zelda. It's always like you defeat him and then when you load it again, it's right back like to defeat. You're never allowed to live in your happiness in this game. Have you noticed that? Like it's always
in all the Zelda games.
It's always a take back.
Even Ocarina was like that. I'm not sure why. I think it's a conscious choice by Nintendo or the creators, all the different designers and creators and directors that make these games. Because I think I actually recall in some interview somewhere reading about how maybe IGN Numa was mentioning this, that it is even though Breath of the Wild is an open world game, it's not like an ever living. It's not a MOBA or anything like that. Actually last night we were talking about Harry Potter Legacy, how it's kind of a bit like it has its own storyline as well.
Yeah.
I think with a Zelda game, the way they see it is Link wakes up most of the time.
Yeah.
And Link defeats Ganon or whatever, and that is the story arc.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they view it. And I would love to just be able to walk around Breath of the Wild after defeating Ganon, but I get it. That's not the story that's being told.
Well, and I wonder if it has to do with side quests too. Like, I mean, the big thing is like you have to you have to get all of the side quests done. You should, or at least try to, and then the final boss is the last big to do, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, if some of the side quests are reliant on there being a big baddie, then all of a sudden you defeat him, and someone's like if peace comes back to the land,
Right.
some of these side quests are going to feel silly and moot to try and continue on. Like,
I agree.
You would have to have your own new side quests about collect this for me just because you're a good guy and not because they've kidnapped my family and stuff like that.
It's possible that the closest thing we have to an after game for Breath of the Wild will be Tears of the Kingdom.
Sure.
Because it is the same map, it's the same universe, it's the same story, same Link, we believe, and it'll be though this is like though things get worse, I guess, but nevertheless
they just stay great. Let's
just walk around and like plant some flowers.
Wouldn't it be cool? And I'm sure they're not going to do this. I'd even put money, but like if you could upload, like you pull in your save data, and like so all the shrines that you've done are just the shrines that are available.
Yeah, a little bit of like a Mass Effect thing.
Yeah, so you like if you haven't found all the shrines, they're not all available to you, and you can still go back and then re-get the shrines in this one.
I mean, personally, I would love that.
That would be, but I don't think so. I don't think they're looking for that kind of gameplay or continuation.
I think they're probably not either, but that would be really, really, really cool. Even the closest thing to a Zelda sequel is Majora's Mask after Ocarina. There's like a spiritual sequel in A Link Between Worlds, but Majora's Mask is a direct sequel to Ocarina.
Yeah,
and even that, Link travels to a different area.
Yeah,
it's like he goes on his little quest.
And they always have that thing where it's like, well, I've lost all my gear halfway here, so I have to start all over again.
Absolutely, and so he gets ransacked, or he gets mugged essentially by the Skull Kid wearing Majora's Mask.
I remember playing Horizon Zero Dawn and then the sequel.
Yeah.
And then so it's like you end and Aloy is like fully decked out and then you start the next game and it's just like, well, too bad I lost all of my really cool armor. Guess I got it. And like it's just a passing sentence. I was like, and that's how we're going to do it? Yeah. That's okay. Because I spent 45,000 hours to get that. So we're just going to take it away from me. Neat. Anyways.
All right, here we go. Our final listener comment is over on Apple Podcast. It's a review, 5-star review from Link Between Reviews. Love it. Great name. And the title is Love the Podcast. We really appreciate when people give us 5-star or any reviews at all on Apple Podcasts, because I say this often, but it is one of the main data points that the algorithm uses to rank podcasts on Apple Podcasts is essentially engagement.
Yep.
And so we really appreciate it whenever people leave these kind of reviews. Here we go. Love the podcast. I started listening to the podcast after hearing David on the Zelda cast. Oh, that was a fun episode. I'd love to speak to that, but I'll keep going here. And had to instantly follow because The Legend of Zelda holds such a sentimental place in my heart. I picked up around season 2 or 3, and after I kept hearing about this Kate person and the okay bye.
Yep.
Had to jump back to the beginning, and I'm so glad I did. Love the group you have put together and the amazing views and opinions of all. This is one of my favorite all-time favorite. I'm having a hard time reading. This is one of my all-time favorite podcasts, and as I sit here typing this, I am greatly anticipating season 6. Well, we're in it, and you're in it too, Link Between Reviews. Okay, bye for now, and thanks for putting out such amazing content.
Well, thank you. That's awesome. Oh, that was good.
We really appreciate that, and yeah, it has been cool. It has turned into like this whole there's like a whole cast now. Back in 2017, Kate and I, actually, I'm kind of getting original season 1 vibes right now, Dan. I didn't want to. I forgot to say this.
Okay.
Because here we are. We're at your house, sitting around your like dining room table, looking at each other with mics and a computer, and it's almost identical to those first 22 episodes with Kate in season 1. It's kind of a fun little throwback that I'm having behind the scenes here.
Oh.
So thank you so much for the comments. We always love hearing from our listeners, and we always love to be able to speak back to that. Sometimes people ask me like, oh, why do you do listener feedback in the beginning of the episode, not like the end or something like that?
Oh.
And in the early days, Kate and I made that choice. We were like, oof, should we just bite off more than we can? Like, should we just put it in the front and just stick to it?
Yeah.
Because it's common. Usually it's more something that goes at the end of an episode.
Really?
Usually.
I think
the format can be all over the place.
Yeah, it's community first. You know what I mean?
That's it exactly. Thanks for making that observation. We realized after even just a couple episodes, we were like, oh, wait a second. No, this is a great way to warm up into the episode and a great way to like literally start the episode by having a bit of a conversation with the listeners.
I understand.
So,
and
Dan,
I appreciate. Okay, are you ready?
I am. The Yiga Clan.
Smoke things, pamphlets flying around, bananas. Gah!
So let's start with this. Both you and I were interested in speaking about the Yiga.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think, 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 you know, I think I suspect that you only have limited exposure to the Sheikah. They are an ocarina, and you've experienced them in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And they're peppered in on Skyward Sword and a few other things. I don't think we can talk about the Yiga without maybe first talking about the Sheikah.
Well, I mean, you have to, because like if you're going to do any research on Yiga whatsoever, it starts with the Sheikah.
Yep.
Like you can't ignore it, and if you are, you're criminally undermining how much research you need to do in order to really get this whole thing. Because like, you know, they're just being like, for them in the story, just them showing up randomly, their boss battle being a little silly. You know, I was like, okay, there's not really going to be much to him. Maybe it's just a side thing. But oh my goodness gracious,
yeah,
this is there's some depth. This is a big deep bucket.
absolutely.
So
you're speaking to right now, like, yeah, I guess, yeah, we're realizing like when you first encounter the Yiga in Breath of the Wild, I think the first time I encountered them was like a foot soldier saying, you know, kind of
like tricking you,
yeah,
right?
tricking me, and I'm like, what the heck was that? That was a
yeah.
scary thing. And then it kind of keeps happening, and you're not really sure. I did not recognize that the symbols, the Sheikah symbol, upside
took
down
me a
at
little
that
bit to
point.
see that one too.
Didn't notice any of that. And then really when you have to go on that Koga quest over in Gerudo
To
Desert
get
or whatever.
the thunder
The helm,
helmet.
indeed.
Yep.
That's when you start realizing, oh, there is a little weird faction. I didn't immediately recognize that they were like anti-Sheikah or inverse Sheikah or anything like that. So that was how I was exposed to them in the game. And quite frankly, besides them being, to me, it felt like some kind of like weird militant, almost like cult or something like that.
I think cult is the exact right word. That what it feels like.
I thought it was like, okay, it's okay, there's a little side thing, but I wasn't putting all of that together as to how much they really do fit into the universe. Is that kind of, I'm guessing that's kind of how you experience it too, based on what you just said?
With playing Breath of the Wild, and that like, so I've said it before, I think on every single episode, seeming I've only really played Ocarina of Time, you know, so I don't have a big experience. So like they show up in like, I was like, it's probably just another thing that all the fans are going to go like, oh, these guys. And I'm just like, oh, cool. It's another new thing that I don't really know anything about. So when I found out that they're new to this one, and I was like, oh, and like you said before, like, man, all of us don't know what these people are. I was like, oh, I feel it like I have the same footing. Like we're figuring this out together.
Totally.
And I loved them. Like I would talk to every traveler because I love that like dice roll of like, ooh, is those people that are gonna like try and kill me?
Fascinating.
Oh.
So I started avoiding talking to people because I don't know why. The battles aren't that hard. There's something about the Yiga, and I do think Koga's pretty goofy, but there's something about the Yiga, the aesthetic, or just the way they pop into there's like ribbons and weird stuff that they're doing with the ether. I don't mind saying they kind of spook me.
Yeah, but I think that's the cool part though. Because for once, I shouldn't say for once, but like it's a mystery. Like Zelda usually is pretty face value. Ganon bad, collect what you need to collect to open the thing.
Fair enough.
And then go get Ganon. Like all of a sudden you're being ambushed by these people that you don't know. That doesn't really feel, and they're not explaining themselves. It's not like you know, sometimes you get ambushed the first time and then there's a monologue of who they are and what they want to do.
How silly you are.
We'll come get you. You look, but like you're like, what was that?
Yeah.
And so like that there was a new mystery that was outside of your regular quest that you didn't really know how to trigger. You didn't really know when it was going to show up next. And it kind of like, for me, it was a new experience in what I've played.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few, one of the things that Breath of the Wild does is I think is very interesting and actually brilliant and fascinating from a game design point of view. And I'm sure there's plenty of other games, open world-ish games that use similar tactics. But when you can go anywhere on the map, how do you ramp up and scale as a designer the difficulty?
Sure.
You know what I mean? And you can have certain areas of your map that are just harder to get to, and maybe the player naturally goes, okay, I guess I'm not going there until a little bit later.
It's usually like high mountains, like you have to work to get to, and then you usually will have like a harder level boss or a guy up there, but you have to work to get there. It's not like you're going to stumble across it just willy-nilly.
That's true. So there can be terrain or geographical design things that make it, like, for example, until you get Rivali's Gale or whatever, some of the mountains are pretty tough, and then you start just shooting up with his little green wind thing.
Because you can't even climb all the way. Your stamina will run out. Like you'll see a shrine up there, and you're like, no.
And that's the whole point. And so you're right. Your hearts and your stamina increase as you do more shrines, and that's a really good way to progress things. I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, Dan.
Let's do it.
For some people, it's common knowledge, but Breath of the Wild technically has a secret experience point system that they never show you.
Okay.
So the way that they handle like monsters slowly getting more difficult, you might notice when you play, like all of a sudden there's like a gold bokoblin or bokoblin, and all of a sudden there's a white one, and boy oh boy, they were harder. Red and blue goes all the way back to the days of classic, the original Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
A red moblin maybe takes 2 hits, and a blue one is always double,
Okay.
like 4 or whatever, right? And so that's why we only see blue and red right in the beginning of the game. But basically, every single time you battle a monster, finish a shrine, complete a beast, the game doesn't do checkpoints of like, okay, you've done one beast, now the whole land is actually, now the new bad guys are out there.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that. Every single time you do any kind of action secretly behind the scenes, you get another like 10 points in your XP. And once your XP triggers over, 5,000 or something, then they've decided that that's really it's your, well, I guess it is literally your experience points scale.
Yeah.
How much have you been doing in the game? And someone did a data mine on Breath of the Wild, and I saw a YouTube video about this where they found out how many points it takes to do all the different things secretly, like what actually counts up.
Okay.
And it's true. Being one bad guy might only just give you 10 points or 100 points or whatever it is. The beasts literally give you 1,000 or 10,000, like
Sure,
a lot.
yeah.
So basically beating a beast almost always at least clicks you up into the next spectrum of whatever your upgrade is.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, so now I want to replay and try not to kill any beasts
Yeah.
at all and just do a dry run, do super sneaky, just hit the main points just to see if you can even do that,
Yeah.
I guess is the first thing.
Well, so that's a really great way for them to make sure that the difficulty of the overworld scales accordingly
Yeah.
to the player's experience. However, that is all to say that the Yiga also scale with the player at certain points. It's not like well, you've just entered, like we talked about, like I actually saw a foot soldier first before I ever did the Yiga quest, I guess.
yeah.
And I had no idea what was going
and
on.
it really depends on what order you want to do the divine beasts in, right? Because like if you
Yeah.
wait and do like the thunder helmet very very last, like I think that's what they're incorporated, or that's what they're tied into. As I recall, like I could be wrong. But, like,
Well, they're doing a lot of things, and then they get a little upset and they decide to steal the Thunder Helm from
Yeah.
Gerudo. Yeah.
yeah, but again, that all ties into because you have to have it in order to get the divine beast, and you can do the divine beast in any order.
That's
So
interesting.
if you wait to do like the camel last, I know the camel has a name. I'm sorry, I just don't know it, so I'm just going to say the camel. But,
Yeah.
Um,
Varuda? I
sure.
can't remember. I sometimes
Sure.
forget the beast names, but anyway.
So yeah, but I'm just saying like I like it that it's out there to where you can stumble upon it when you want to.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, the last little game mechanic thing I want to talk about, because then we can probably dive into the lore here, is that there are little trigger points for the Yiga to be introduced to you as a player.
Okay.
I think the reason I'm inspired to talk about this right now is because we are still kind of talking about experiencing the Yiga from the point of view of the game.
Yeah.
And so there are 2 trigger points in the game that will upgrade you to a new level of how the Yiga affect you.
Okay.
The first is if you go to Kakariko Village and speak to Impa.
Okay.
If you don't do that, you won't be ransacked or secretly attacked by the foot soldiers. And I think you kind of know some of this too, because we did some co-research.
I did a little research. Yeah.
I wanna get into the story of why that happens when we start talking about lore. Let's skip over that right now.
Okay.
But that if you do go to Impa, which a lot of people are really strongly instructed to do so early in the
without
game,
a doubt, like
and which is what I did the first time. There are reasons where the Yiga there's like a spy, and the Yiga realize you exist.
Mhm.
So from a story point of view, that makes sense. But that's that's the first trigger in the game to have them start affecting you.
Yep.
In the overworld. Also, by the way, like another really brilliant thing is when you're in the Great Plateau,
sure.
there's no nighttime and no weather. Like they don't introduce those elements until you jump off the Great Plateau.
Oh,
so the
got it.
game really, really like secretly brings in these elements of making the game more complicated. And it's so subtle and so brilliant that you don't even notice it when you're
I
playing.
just remember the first time you run into a thunderstorm and I just kept dying and I had no idea. Like
Like you were wearing metal
yeah,
or something?
and I was like, why do this is ridiculous. And then like unfortunately, like I had to Google it. And then it was like, hey, dum dum, do you have a giant metal shield on your back? I was like, well, yeah. They're like, figure it out yourself. And I was like,
oh, physics.
no. Electricity's stupid.
Anyway, then when you do go on the Yiga submission or side mission, side quest, which actually is kind of like a main quest almost, because you have to do
You
it.
had to, yeah.
Then what happens is, so the story is that the Yiga realize that links exist, so that's why they're out in the overworld after you go to Impa. When you go to the Yiga main base and technically defeat their master Koga, that then it ramps up to the blade. What are they called? Blade Masters?
I think it's
Blade Masters.
Because the Blade Masters and their Wind Cleaver.
Then the Blade Master. Oh, I didn't even have that one in my notes. The Blade Masters then can ransack you or mug you. Mm-hmm. And the story element there is they're even more mad now that you've defeated their master.
Oh yeah.
But technically, if you if you don't go see Impa in the early parts of the game and you go and just explore the Yiga hideout.
Yeah.
Like you can still technically get into that battle the zone from above. You know, just Koga's not there, but you can walk around. That technically is an equal trigger to Impa because they at least know Link exists.
Got it.
So you can trigger them starting to get to you by doing those two things, and then the next big one is if you defeat their master, then they get really mad and they start tracking you down.
Yep.
Okay, that's game design.
So that's game design. So now let's hit them up with the story. Let's bring him in. Let's bring him in the world.
I think we set up a little bit of the prehistory.
Okay.
And then we'll go to break, and then we'll do like the actual all the lore stuff.
Oh, okay, cool.
I've been talking a lot. I think we both have similar notes about some of the ways that how the Yiga came to be.
True.
And why don't I hand it off to you so you can kind of set things up.
Okay. So, from what I researched, way back, there was this group of people called the Sheikah, right? I think we're all familiar with them. And so this is all in the Breath of the Wild, story.
We'll say universe. Yeah,
universe.
Sure.
Okay,
story.
So, and they worked hand in hand with the king. And they created the divine beasts. They created or helped with their technology. They're like,
I think my interpretation was they were like basically like the mega scientists.
Yeah,
of
exactly.
Hyrule.
Yeah. And so they
so good at science that it's almost magic.
Yeah. Well, and I think you can flat out say there is a connection to magic.
Ooh.
Because if you go on later, that's something that I wanted to talk about. There has to be a magical element to this.
Let me do this.
So they create the divine beasts. They create the guardians. All to stop Ganon and all that other fun jazz, right? So hooray, we locked up Ganon. Good job. High fives for the whole table.
Yeah.
So the king, after all is said and done, gets a little jelly, gets a little nervous, gets a little paranoid about this whole thing, right?
Maybe they're getting too strong.
Yeah, and that's it. I think he starts to see these allies as the next wave of villains, because he and who he controls has nothing to stop him. Like I got nothing. They are the reasons why we even stopped Ganon in the first place.
Wow, yeah.
So
if we do end up disagreeing,
I'm out. They win. They
win.
Insta win. And so And so he disbands or essentially outlaws, kicks him out and says, "Y'all garbage. If you can't come back here,
y'all garbage.
Y'all garbage. Thanks for literally everything.
Now get out of here."
But what is that power dynamic though? Like you're like, dude, we own and created everything, and some guy's just like, knock it off.
Well, and it might come down to the fact that he's the king and technically has that say.
I know, but I hear it. I just I have a divine beast that says shut up.
Well, quite frankly, I think you're starting to hint at some of the Yiga seeds here.
Yeah, and so then that's when the Sheikah split. Mm-hmm. That is
yes, yeah. My interpretation too, as I was doing my research, is that all of the Sheikah basically get kicked out of Hyrule. Mm-hmm. Some of them say, "Okay, fine, we get it."
No, yeah.
They literally bury. Oh, split as in leave. I thought you meant split.
They split and both. So they essentially dip out.
Well, some Sheikah are fine with it, and some Sheikah are upset about it.
And that's the split.
Yep.
So Sheikah itself becomes two different factions.
Yeah.
And so there is the okay with it, and so they go to Kakariko Village. They kind of just go well, it's peaceful. They don't really need us. Mm-hmm. The king's doing his own thing. We all right.
They live a pseudo monk style lifestyle.
Yeah, they're cool. And then there's the other ones, and that is the Yiga.
It becomes the Yiga Clan.
And they are hyper violent, super offended about what happened.
Yep.
And then say look, we did everything to help you defeat Ganon, and then you do this to us. Mm-hmm. We jump in sides. And they essentially become the thing that the king didn't want them to become.
Yes.
Since he kicked them out.
The very thing.
It's a weird self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't want them to become the villains, so I should make them powerless. And then because they're powerless, they become the villains.
Now, the one thing the Yiga Clan, we're calling them they aren't officially they don't officially form as the Yiga until like 10,000 years later.
But like,
they're like,
that's where the
but
split
that's their
is.
head. And if we refer to them as Yiga, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
If you're okay
there's
with
a
that
different term we want to use, just let me know.
The super mad Sheikah.
The disgruntled Sheikah.
Yeah, disgruntled Sheikah. Yeah. We really wanted to get technical. I guess it's that.
And so, the name evolves, right down.
But this group, they're kind of also, so all of the Sheikah are kind of disparately scattered all over, I guess, we'll call it Hyrule, not Hyrule Kingdom. Yeah, there we go. So they're scattered all over Hyrule. Some are super fine with what's going on and some are super mad.
Yeah.
And so there are even like little, what my interpretation of the lore is that there's pockets of maybe some roaming troops that are upset about what was going on. There's pockets that are living peacefully.
Sure.
And, but also I want to note that even the disgruntled Sheikah, they didn't go and like dig up some guardians or anything. They actually they have some technology, but they're not running around with beasts and stuff.
And that's what I was say. The important thing that I think is that the technology itself almost stops with what the king says.
Yeah.
Like, so all research and advance. Maybe he was the money. Maybe that's how he could stop it all.
Oh, wow! I never thought about
so maybe,
that. That would make
it's
sense.
Like, it's like you have all the smartest scientists in the world, but if you can't get $1 for research, you're not researching nothing.
That could be.
Just an idea.
I like that.
And so they separate, but the important thing is, and we can take a break if you need to, but like they split, and research and development, the R&D program is just cut. Like there's no more advancements. It's back to farming and doing your own thing.
Oh, this is a great place to take a break because basically then 10,000 years happens.
And then that's how we'll come back.
Yeah,
and
we'll come back.
10,000 years happened. Like,
and all I know.
That's one hell of a time jump.
I was thinking to myself, like 10,000 years happens. Hyrule should be in outer space, but like that's a whole other that's a whole
research and development was cut. And that's why we are not in Zelda 2099, okay?
Cool. All right, I'll see you on the other side of the breakdown.
Has this ever happened to you?
This video game is bullshit!
Are you tired of gaping plot holes and boring gameplay mechanics?
Look, all I'm saying is that if a full-fledged Krogan is falling off a platform, there's no way Commander Shepard has the upper arm strength to pull him up.
Has reading become just too tedious of a chore?
Ugh, books.
Are you bored of your same 3 murder podcasts?
Shocking, it's The Butler.
Allow me to introduce you to the brand new fan fiction podcast with an X, hosted by our lovely basement-dwelling and real-life Muppet, Dan McCoy.
Well, that's hurtful.
And myself, of course, the blonde bombshell with the blood of Odin and the great looks of Jake Busey from Starship Troopers.
That's accurate.
And with our powers combined.
No.
Oh, you never let me do what I want to do.
I said no, man, we're not doing that.
Fine. Anyway, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your fix from. Remember, fan fiction with an X.
It's the first day of school, and I'm walking around downtown Chicago with hundreds of other students. Everyone's getting back from summer break, and you can tell that they're happy to see each other after a couple months. For me, however, it's been a little longer. Hi, I'm David, and I want to introduce you to Returning Student, a documentary podcast that I've been making about my return to a college that I left 20 years ago. I'm back in the same city, at the same school, the same student ID number. Everything else feels completely different. My fellow classmates are literally half my age. My professors work in my industry. Sometimes I wonder why I've come back at all. But then I get the opportunity to sit down with one of my professors and have a conversation with them, which usually yields a little bit of wisdom. You can find the show on all major podcast providers, as well as our website, returningstudentpodcast.com. A lot has changed over the past 2 decades. Hello there, listeners. David here. You know, the whole team at Another Zelda Podcast appreciates every bit of support our listeners give. And if you'd like to enjoy some extra content, we invite you to consider becoming a patron through our Patreon page. Sword members get a thank you on our website, as well as monthly digital wallpapers for all your devices, and the opportunity to participate in an annual meetup on Discord with the AZP team. White Sword members will get everything the Sword tier gets, and also they'll get access to episodes a week early, as well as bonus episodes that we record specifically for Patreon. A new thing we're doing is monthly Discord meetups where we'll play trivia and hang out with you as well. Lastly, and this is our most popular tier, actually, the Magical Sword level, which includes, of course, everything from the previous 2 levels, but also gives supporters access to behind-the-scenes videos that we produce and behind-the-scenes extended video versions of every episode. Thank you so much for your time. Let's get back to the show, and if you're already on Patreon, we are so grateful that you're helping us keep Another Zelda podcast vibrant.
Thousand years later.
That's a way to come back.
That's my favorite voice.
Wow.
I like that one. I do it all the time for fan fiction too. It's the only voice I really got. That and Kermit. Which I pulled a beautiful gangster Kermit in episode 10.
Yeah, which will be 4 episodes from now.
Oh, well then get ready because I am pretty excited about you guys hearing that one.
Dan and I we're recording 3 episodes this weekend, and we've accidentally recorded them exactly in reverse order.
Which really messes with your brain because you want to talk about what you talked about, but you can't talk about it because no one's heard it yet. So we're just from the future.
We just got to be super professional.
Yep, we're Merlining.
Okay.
That one. That's
right,
I'm gonna
I
stick
like
with
it.
that one. Okay.
I exist in all of space and time.
Oh, I only know what happened previously, not what happens in the future.
That's right, because he goes backwards.
Yeah, he lives day by day. Only Benjamin Button, only not age-wise.
Yeah,
So
right.
He still gets older.
Yiga, interesting. Though. Yeah, Yiga. So 10,000 years goes by. So now we are in the realm of the 100 years before the plane of Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
And so about 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild, we also know that that's when the big calamity attack happened, the first one and all that stuff. Now, I'm actually getting a little fuzzy on this. Somewhere around 100 years before Breath of the Wild, that's when it's been 10,000 years, that's when the disgruntled Sheikah kind of really more organize and form up. They've been probably doing it for a while, but they declare themselves as the Yiga.
Well, I imagine it's like you had said before the break, but like there were so many different pockets. I mean, they spread all over.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's probably disgruntled person A and then
Yeah.
B's over here.
You could imagine
so
like a
eventually-
farmhouse with like 2 that liked what happened and 1 that didn't.
Yeah,
And then they finally start collecting.
And I think that's what it is. It's finally, and then there's also the training, so there's like, I mean,
What are you talking about?
I mean, they're talented. They know what they're doing. I mean,
That's true.
they're using magic.
That's true.
So like there has to be a certain amount of like, you can't just be disgruntled farmer meets disgruntled plumber and all of a sudden they're magical ninjas,
Yeah, that's
like
true.
There's got to be an evolution, a training process. They have to set up the hierarchy. Koga has to do whatever Koga does in order to become the leader of this whole thing. Like
Yeah.
you got to give it a little time to build this whole thing up.
I even think I remember reading something about how Master Koga is the current master, but there were some previous. So I'm now starting to realize it's not like 100 years ago a switch was flipped and all of a sudden, boom, they're awesome.
Yeah.
It's been 10,000 years. They've been probably ramping up. And
Yeah.
I think they've been an organized group probably for a couple thousand years.
Yeah, because I mean, they're basically lying in wait.
Yeah.
Because, and as we were going to speak to,
Sure.
One of the triggering elements, like we said, that if you don't visit Impa at all, like they don't show up because they're waiting for you to wake up.
Right.
Like that is it. Once, because there is a spy in Kakariko Village.
Yeah, sure. We can talk about this.
I feel like that's
I
the
feel like we're
next
jumping
step.
forward in the timeline just
We
a
can
little
step
bit.
back.
Okay, well, let's do
Let's
this.
take a step back then.
So because technically that's now in the
Oh,
present.
no, I did jump 100 years. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. But that's such a beautiful story. I can't wait for
100
us to-
years ago.
There we go. Now we're back on
Now we're
track.
there. Got it. Okay.
But I do think it was Master Koga and where they kind of officially said, okay, we officially are the Yiga Clan. We officially stand for X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And X, Y, and Z basically made them really mad at the I guess the Hylians at
Yeah.
this point.
Yep.
And almost I don't even know if they hate the Hylians, but it's more like, fine, we're going to bring Ganon back no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah.
And that's probably been their quest for the past 10,000
I'm
years.
sure it's more like the king. I mean, it's got to be the bloodline, the people who like disrespected the
Yeah.
Sheikah so long ago. I mean, they hate the Sheikah too for being okay with being disrespected.
It's true.
So there's a lot of hate to spread around, but it's
Yeah.
got to be the original people who like banished them essentially, and then the people who were complacent with the banishment.
I agree. And then also there's that other weird mechanic where so Ganondorf is Gerudo.
Yeah.
In all of the Zelda games. And he's there. He's the one man that's born every 100 years in the Gerudo culture. or at least maybe there's maybe it's not every time a man is born it's Ganondorf. Probably,
Have we ever seen another male that isn't Ganondorf?
we haven't.
Okay.
But there is no canonical like proof of every time that man is born it is Ganondorf. We could deduce that there's plenty of centuries that go by where it's just the dude.
How do they reproduce?
So in Breath, so I can ask.
I mean, I just like I don't want to get off, but
No, I
like
totally get it.
now my brain's like,
I know.
Wait.
I thought about this too with I don't know, some previous.
and you
episode.
can just say video games, and then we'll be fine with it.
Well, so the answer in Ocarina of Time is as Hello Hyrule would say, gamey whamey.
Gamey whamey, got it.
Yeah, it's just all women because it's gamey whamey, and that's what it is.
But wasn't it like I'm sorry, it's not like the Amazons or anything where like they bring in like one prisoner or something like that.
It kind of is. In Breath of the Wild, if you chat with many of the Gerudo women, they actively speak about trying to find a husband, and the way it's told in Breath of the Wild, the way it's rationalized in Breath of the Wild from the storytelling point of view, is that the Gerudo women have to they get courage to like leave the town and go find a mate.
Okay.
Which is also kind of that Terrytown side quest.
There it is.
Bolson.
Yep, you're not wrong.
They get married. So there's plenty of times where, especially as you're going towards Gerudo Town, there's travelers and Gerudo women leaving, and then they're out in the. When you pass them on a path, they kind of speak to like they're looking for a mate because they have to, because there isn't a man.
Got it.
Now, how does the bloodline stay Gerudo if they're
They
fighting
got
all
real
these other
strong
things?
genes.
Yeah,
Real
apparently.
strong genes.
Yeah.
So,
but that's where that comes from. So
Okay,
that's
cool.
that's kind of a brush off as to how they reproduce, how they stay going.
done and done.
But anyway, Ganondorf is Gerudo, and the Yiga clan is trying to bring Ganondorf back. But Ganondorf and the Gerudo do not, even though Ganondorf is Gerudo, what he has done in previous games and what it's implied that he's doing in like even Breath of the Wild, or what he could do, makes also him an enemy of the Gerudo.
Oh, sure.
women.
Yeah, they're not like all high-fiving him just because
Right.
he's part of their culture. Like
It's
they
true.
understand that he's the villain.
In fact, we could imagine that every 100 years, okay, a man is born, and every couple thousand, it turns out to be Ganondorf, and they're like, dang it, oh, we missed this one.
There we go. Sets us back another 100 years again. God, these guys are jerks. So yes.
And
yes,
so in
yes,
that way,
yes, yes.
Yiga also really don't like the Gerudo.
Yeah, got it.
That's all I was trying to set up.
Okay, so we're 100 years before.
Well, I think that's kind of it. They actively, I believe that the Yiga actively did. They were the ones that actively were able to bring Calamity Ganon back for that big attack that happened 100 years before.
Because they are 100% pro, like Ganon. Like that's their end game. That's what they want.
Yeah.
They want that whole evil ending to come to fruition.
And I don't even know if they think or care about the goddess Hylia, goddess Hylia. I don't think they're even tracking that. I think they're just like, fine, Ganon, let's go.
Yeah, because I wonder. I do wonder if we're pro Ganon or we're just so anti Sheikah establishment that like an enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Well, that is
kind
the
of thing.
question.
You know
And
what
in
I
many
mean?
ways, the Yiga clan is an analogy to telling the story of people who hate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and that's just
And another thing I really like about this, I think we'll jump to the present here, but one thing that I really like about this is that if you really track the Yiga's, I guess, conception 10,000 years ago, getting kicked out, there's a part of you that's like, yeah, that was wrong.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
They were wronged. Like
Yeah.
very much so.
And is it better to just be passive and take it and try to find a better life? Sometimes, depending on the day, any of us might feel like, no, that's the wrong choice or that's the right choice. But when you create a group that is literally fueled by hate, and then you give that 10,000 years, you get what the Yiga clan becomes.
I mean, you could write the story where they're the heroes. I think like
Well,
you know
they probably think they are.
Exactly. You know, like any story written any way, anyone's the hero.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's always one of my most fascinating things about doing this deep dive is like, oh my gosh, they're not silly little side quests. Like they have story, they have a purpose, they have merit, and they're kind of warranted on why they're so angry and upset about everything. You know,
Or at least initially were.
yeah, and it's so fascinating that like something like that turns into something deeper and more complex to a certain degree.
Because I think at the point of Breath of the Wild, it is just let's get Ganon back, and so that's almost like some kind of hate worship as well, where that's why we said in the beginning of this episode, like they're one could say that they're pretty dang close to being like a cult status.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what that's how being fueled by hate can seed something like that.
Oh, without a doubt.
So I don't know. I'm comfortable. So the Calamity Ganon comes back. Everything happens. Link and Zelda aren't successful.
Yep.
Link actually dies. Zelda brings him to the
Rest-
recovery room.
The restoration chamber.
Is that what it's called?
I don't know.
think- yeah.
It starts with an R chamber.
The
Like,
room of restoration,
Yep.
required restoration.
the really sleepy tomb.
Yeah, the sleepy bath.
The sleepy bath,
Yeah,
exactly.
let's put him in the sleepy bath.
The resty goo.
Resty goo. Oh, that's good.
That's the resty goo.
Yeah. So she puts him in the resty goo, and she basically holds Ganon and puts him on pause, and with her power, she's holding him until the time is right.
Yep.
And the Yiga are also aware of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, that guy Link that actually almost defeated Calamity Ganon. We got to keep our eye on him.
Yep.
We know through sources and spies or whatever that this Link dude is going to come out of the goo someday, and we got to be ready.
Yep.
And that is their not new motivation, but the
That's
additional
their new-
layer of motivation.
That's their ongoing purpose for the beginning part of the game.
Of Breath of the Wild.
Is to watch out for you.
Yeah.
And so
So here we are in the game.
100 years from the time then we went 100 years ago to now. We're at now. We're now.
Nailed it. You nailed it.
Got it. Yes. So game starts. Let's just say start of the game. You come out. You got a whole bunch of stuff. You go to the Great Plateau. You learn all the buttons, all that fun jazz. And you go eventually to
I say Kakariko.
Kakariko Village. And so I think it's actually a really fun little hook lure because like you're gonna go talk to Impa.
Yeah.
You have to. Like she's one of the only names that you recognize from other games. It's that recurring character. You're drawn to her. You want to go talk to her, you know, just to see what's her or what she's like in this game.
I just thought of something. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Please.
As the game starts, one thing you don't realize is that the way that the Yiga are keeping their sensors up to see when Link comes back is that they're disguising themselves as spies all over Hyrule.
Oh, they're everywhere. Travelers, people in villages, like, and yeah, it's and,
so we could go back to Impa here.
Yeah, and so you talk to Impa, but little do you know, they're done be a spy in that little town.
Yep.
Okay, and so once you talk to her, that spy's like, oh, dip, he's back.
He's spying as one of her security guards.
Yeah, yep.
Or he's posing as one of her security guards.
And so then, bada bing, now they know you're back, and now you'll get ransacked. Like now they're after you. Now they know the purpose that they've been waiting for is come to fruition, and it's time to get on the horse.
What's fun about that or interesting about that is, from a game mechanic point of view, which we already talked about, okay, fine, it means those triggers can start to happen. But if we look at it from a story point of view or a lore point of view, it's easy to imagine the pitter-patter of the information going back through. And
he's back. Oh, man.
And we learn later that this spy has like daily reports with the Yiga Clan and all of that.
He's got his own little side quests.
I know. I'm wondering if we should just talk about it.
I mean, we're here.
All right. So so there's many spies all over the place, but one of the main Yiga spies, I don't know main for what affects Link.
I think for him being put so close to Impa, I think you have to understand that he has to be someone of great value. Like you're not going to put rookie Joe Schmo under him.
So we're speaking about a man named Dorian.
Yep, Dorian.
Dorian is one of the guards in Kakariko Village, and if you spend enough time in Kakariko Village, you start to learn that he has 2 kids. You start to learn one of the kids, if you spend enough time in Kakariko Village, you'll find them mourning by a pile of rocks where a cliff was, and the kid speaks to that's the mother's grave or where she died and stuff like that. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's some really deep things going on here. I hope Dorian's okay, is what I remember thinking.
Oh, poor guy.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, single dad.
Also, because you're kind of getting these story beats just by disparately talking to people in the town. It's not like a cutscene or a main narrative or anything like that. You are slowly putting the pieces together. I think Dorian's a fascinating character because we spent all this time talking about how the Yiga has come to be the Yiga.
Yeah, we haven't given him much of a personality though, because once you say he's a cult member, I think we kind of just wash personality out of the door. They're here for one thing, and they're here to attack us, and no one's going to really have emotion behind the mask.
One thing that I appreciate about Dorian's representation is that Dorian is a character that was part of the Yiga clan. I think went to Kakariko Village as a spy,
Yep, 100%.
but fell in love with a Kakariko woman,
Yep.
and then decided, you know what, actually, he doesn't say this, but like, oh, my eyes have been opened, or I don't yet no longer feel all of that hate or whatever it is.
Exactly. I think the love overcome the hate. And
there you go.
He just kind of feels like, I think it's one of those, I understand why the Sheikah were cool with this, because like, look, I can be happy, like I don't need to always feel scorned. I don't need to always feel betrayed.
Yeah.
So.
And he has to. Well, why don't you tell his story?
No,
a
you're
little bit?
good. You're doing a
I've been
great job.
talking a lot, and I think that'd be a nice way to hand this off to you.
But so da 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 da. That's how I'm gonna say
Perfect. Nailed it.
Got it. But if you and I didn't know this 100%, so David kind of filled me in. But like, so right around 8 o'clock.
Oh yeah.
Like,
But wait. Oh, this is how Link discovers his story.
Yeah.
Well, let's say this too. Before that happens, is in the lore, Dorian marries a Kakariko woman. They have 2 kids. He basically fades out of Yiga.
Yep.
He even tells the Yiga, I'm out. I don't want to do this
Bounce.
anymore.
And
Uh-huh.
then they go ahead and assassinate his wife.
As punishment.
Yeah,
And they
so-
say, guess what? No, you're actually still in the Yiga clan. You're going to be our spy. And if you try to defect again,
And
your children are in
so,
danger.
I mean, and knowing this really shows the potency of the Yiga.
Yeah.
Like, just whenever you see, like, oh, what? No, they did. Like, not a threat. Like,
and imagine like just the horrible, like how Dorian has to exist now. He's
Yeah.
he's a prisoner of the Yiga.
oh yeah, without a doubt, you know. And so, you can, and I didn't even notice this, but like, you can watch, and like, everyone goes to their villages,
Yeah,
everyone
here we
goes to
go.
their little huts. But if you stand back and you watch, he doesn't. Dorian doesn't do that.
Mhm.
He actually goes up the mountain, da 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 da, crawls in here. And then, like, if you follow him too closely, because remember, he is like a spy trained,
Mhm.
he'll like make up some excuse, he'll say something. So you have to like be far enough back to follow him up the mountain without getting caught by him.
Yes.
And then you will see him.
He has an exchange with a Yiga clan
Yeah.
member.
And then you're like, oh, snap.
Mhm.
And so that's where you get like his kind of story.
and you realize that every night he has to go report to this spy
Yep.
about what he's learned.
Yeah.
And super begrudgingly. In fact, in that it is technically a shrine quest.
Sure.
And it's a bit of a tough one to get to if you have to really notice some subtleties. But and then eventually, just like in the game part of it, Link then fights that Yiga clan member
Mhm.
and is able to resolve Dorian's attachment to it, and then you get a shrine and all
But
that
you
stuff.
think like, as much as like, yeah, you defeat the guy, you get the shrine, like, but I mean, Dorian can't be completely out of it. Just because you take off one person, like,
Yeah.
you know, someone's going to replace him. Someone's going to be like, hey, has anyone heard from Dorian lately?
I know.
And they're like, no. So like, as much as I think we feel like, we saved him, he's out. Is he? Are you ever really out if they know you have 2 kids still?
I mean, I think you're right. I
mean,
think you're absolutely right.
so
it's a terrifying situation
There's
to be
no
in.
like Hylian witness protection program. So,
yeah,
and if there is, he's my number 1.
yeah. Throw him into like
Just throw him in Zora's
put him
domain.
under the Great Deku Tree or something.
Yeah, something
right?
like
Make
that.
it hard for people to get to.
So again, like right off the bat, an amazing story that comes out of these characters.
Mhm.
So then, that's when they realize you're awake. That's when they figure out you're up and they can start attacking you on the
mhm.
path.
We've talked about right, absolutely. What are some other just like observations of the Yiga that you have made?
So the one thing that I thought was really fascinating is their powers.
Right, you did a little bit more research on this than I did.
And so, because like, if they attack you, they do this thing where they like, you know, do some hand movements, and then a red ring will show up, and then there's runes. There is runes in there.
Yeah.
And then whenever they do their disappear thing, like you'll see a whole bunch of little pieces of paper.
Yeah, I noticed
like,
that.
fly away, and like, so what? Okay, what is this? What is this all about? And so I watched a couple of YouTube channels, kind of went on this whole thing, and it is the Yiga Clan takes a bunch of inspiration from the Japanese and ninja culture. Okay.
Oh, like outside, like the game, the
Yeah,
design
the
of them?
designers and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So the theory is that like what that is, that red ring, and there's like, please do some research too, because I can't get into it all. But it translates to their numbers PPTSKJRZZ. Okay. And so
Okay.
that all translates into a form of meditation. Okay, so what they're doing is that they are essentially having a moment of like runic meditation that then triggers them to use these powers. And so that's why they have to take a second, like, and then they zen, and then they can use their power.
That's awesome.
And then the flyers are there's a couple different interpretations, because it's basically
The
just
ribbons or the papers?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's an upside down Sheikah state or Sheikah symbol,
Okay.
and then 2 eyes or 2 dots or something after that. And people are saying that they're just charms, because in like the culture, like in a lot of video games, like that's a big thing. Like charms are that ward off evil, that do this, that do that. You know, like grant you luck. You know, ward away evil spirits. And so it's seeming they're all the same, and it's not really easy to tell what they mean. But that's the idea: is that it's charms that pop out to either protect or to help with luck, or something of that degree.
Well, as you're talking about this, I'm realizing that it's not like the Yiga created new magic. They're probably using the base, the root, the technology that the Sheikah
Oh yeah.
had.
Well, and so that's it. How are they doing all this? Because without the Sheikah slates,
without the Sheikah slate?
they don't have the slate at all. So
Sure.
that, remember how we said like, oh, you're like, oh, they probably used a little magic. It was like they had to have, because even what's the monk Masa?
Yeah. I don't know how to say this character's name, but it's the monk that you fight at the end of like all the final DLC.
Yeah, and so she or he,
Mhm.
they also use that same rune before they power up.
Yes.
So it is something that is in line with the magic from the original Sheikah.
Yeah.
And then even what's his? I always forget his name. The main Kabuko.
Ooh, what are you talking
No,
about?
the main
Master Koga?
yeah, Master Koga.
Okay.
Yeah. So like he even uses it. Remember, but he doesn't really have it down. Remember, he summons the giant ball.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
He summons the giant ball and then it crushes him.
Yeah.
So like it shows that like they have magic. They are trying everything they can to get to where they went or get to where they were at some point, but they're not there yet. So remember how we said like all the scientists, split up, like if you just call them the research and development's cuts.
Yeah.
And so it's the super smart ones who knew what they were doing. And of course, thousands of years went by. And so like they have old tattered notebooks of how to reuse their old magic.
Oh,
But they're just, they can't get back to their old glory yet.
That's what you're saying
but
about the Yiga.
But they have some notebooks on how to do these simple little practices.
They're not building their own divine beasts, but they might be practicing how to take over the divine
Or
beasts.
I don't even know if they're going to be even close to that yet. I think they're still trying to just harness just the magic itself to figure out what they can do with it next. Because
Yeah.
all we really see is like,
It's like they're Iron Manning in the cave right now.
exactly. And so like they can summon things and they can do it all without the Sheikah slate.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the Sheikah slate is interesting because I think that is a way for the Sheikah to transfer their powers to Link to be
Yeah.
able to use. But I think the Sheikah can do a lot of their things without the slate.
Well, because I even said like, and one of the only times we see that
Mhm.
is in Skyward Sword.
Okay.
Impa, like at a point she needs to blow up a thing and she summons a blue orb
She does.
and it's like rah, 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 which looks really similar to the bombs that Link
Yeah.
can summon
Yeah.
in Breath of the Wild.
I think so.
So like is it inherent? Is it in their like DNA that they can use this magic? Is it something that
My interpretation of the Sheikah slate, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're onto something there too. My interpretation of the Sheikah slate is that Link himself doesn't have any Sheikah powers or training or anything like
Yeah.
that. And so, I mean, let's face it, the Sheikah slate is kind of like his magic wand.
yeah.
And so it's like, hey, guess what? We've loaded this thing up with a bunch of Sheikah tech.
Yeah.
And you literally load it up with those drops of liquid that give
Yeah.
you little firmware updates on your iPad.
What if that's just the blood of the Sheikah? Like, wouldn't that be really dark? Like,
Oh,
because
well,
it's if we're saying it's like in their DNA, like maybe it's like I don't know.
maybe. I do think that does remind me that we haven't actually talked about how the Yiga clan's symbol is the Sheikah symbol upside down and color inverted.
Yep, color inverted. Yep. I mean, and it's just it's slap in the face. I mean, all it is just to be like offensive and like dude,
Yeah.
like we see what you're doing and we're flipping it and making it a mockery of what it was. I mean, even if you go to the temple, they have it like on banners over the original Sheikahs that are there. Like
Yep.
it is.
Oh,
To see the original Sheikah symbol is probably offensive to them.
yeah. I also
So
read
they
yeah.
want to cover it up as much as possible.
Indeed. I also read that they're the ones that are putting the masks over the frog things, the frog statues.
Sure.
Because the frog statues are connected to like some of the Sheikah lore or their way that they might practice some worship and stuff like that. And so then they're putting the masks on the frogs. I thought the frogs were super creepy going up into the Yiga
Yep.
place. When the Sheikah symbol is the Sheikah symbol,
Mhm.
it's an eyeball, which represents being able to see more than you can see, and the thing that's coming down is supposed to be a tear.
Yeah.
And it's a tear that's supposed to represent when the Sheikah were exiled.
Got it.
So the Yiga, and I don't want to be too on the nose here, they flip it and it turns into something that is like a stand proud, stand tall
Yeah.
type of symbol. By flipping it, the tear doesn't become a tear that's dropping of sadness. It becomes some way to like be an aggressor, I
Well,
guess.
and you could also say like now that it's red, it's no longer a tear; it's now blood.
Sure.
just
Sure.
to show
Oh, hey, if we want to get too little, I'm looking at the symbol right now.
let's do it.
It's red, and it's all about this energy coming up. It's about seeing Ganon and bringing him back
There it
out.
is. That works too.
That's probably a little too literal,
I
but
like
I'm into it.
It's multiple levels.
I'm
multiple
into it.
levels. And then of course, once you defeat Koga, then they get even more mad at you.
Mm-hmm.
So now the blade wielder is now someone who will randomly jump up and attack you. And it was kind of
Yes.
cool because I was
Blade
reading
Master.
he has a wind cleaver, which I guess because it can, if you use it, you can slice and it sends waves out.
It does.
Which is based off a very famous, and I don't know the phrase or term for it, but a very famous Japanese sword.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they
That's
took,
cool.
yeah, please look this up. There's a bunch of really great YouTube videos that really dive into how much of the ninja culture, the Japanese culture, the Yiga are even Koga's big performance, even his number, it's supposed to be somewhat reminiscent of a Japanese dance festival because
wow.
there's vendors. If you look in the area, there's vendors all around it.
Yeah.
And it's really with lanterns hanging around and he even is dancing quite a lot. He's doing these movements because it's just the festival that they wanted to emulate in his boss battle.
I think, yeah. And so if you are Zeltic does a lot of great work. Zeldum does a lot of great work. Hyrule Gamer does a lot of great work. I want to talk about this relationship with Master Koga and what did you call his right-hand man? What was his name? I forgot.
Oh, I don't remember.
No, I think you called him
I don't think I had Koga's right-hand man.
Oh, he's not a Blade Master. Master Koga, Yiga Foot Soldiers, and Blade Masters. There's oh no, this is horrible. I might have to look this up. But he has that right-hand man that's a real, brass tacks. He's definitely the muscle.
Yeah.
What's your take on Koga? What do you think they're doing there? Is he supposed to be the slightly he's actually not particularly skilled, but he was charismatic enough to become the leader?
But here's the thing: you can say that he's not particularly skilled, and that's fine. But I think he is probably the most skilled in the magics because he does summon the giant ball.
Okay.
So he's probably more advanced when it comes to the ancient magic, and that's probably how he got the position. But it's just, again, it shows that they're nowhere near harnessing it for great power right now, which is probably, they expect when Ganon comes back, he'll help them unlock the rest of their potential.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? He will put us to our former glory. He will help us get back to the all respected, super powerful version of ourselves. So I think Koga's talented. I mean, he's a little goofy, when he's dancing and all this. I mean, he destroys himself, but maybe that's in the grand scheme of thing that hatred will always end up destroying itself.
Sure.
If you hate so much that the blind rage that you will eventually take your own self down, which is what happens in his boss battle.
There's definitely a lot of ego
Yeah.
with Master Koga. I'm still trying to find his right-hand man, but I may not pull it up, and I don't want to spend too much time looking. But oh shoot, I lost my train of thought because I did choose to look something up. I'm so sorry. When I first interfaced with Koga, I thought, maybe they were trying to communicate one of these fake prophet type of characters.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure. I'm the chosen one. I'm the
and he's just maybe charismatic enough to continue to. People, even though he's a little quirky, people put up with that.
Yeah.
But because he's good enough, maybe in a speech or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is my thought.
But I think we don't see anyone who can pull the things off that he does.
That's a fair point.
So if you're talking about battle wise, I mean, I know we never really hand to hand him all that much like we do the foot soldiers or blade wielders. But I mean, clearly he is the most magically talented member of the Yiga that we're gonna stumble across at this point.
I'll take you up on that. I agree now. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's interesting.
Boom, gotcha.
Well, right now let's spend a little bit of time theorizing, even though we don't do theories that much, but I can't help it.
I can't wait for this
because we're doing Yiga Clan. Their whole goal is to bring Ganon back. They brought Calamity Ganon back.
Sure.
As of this recording, Tears of the Kingdom hasn't come out yet. Is there any version where I know that you've been staying pretty light on the trailers on purpose because you don't want spoilers and stuff like that.
And this makes it even more fun for me because now you're like, oh no, I saw a scene where that completely contradicts that. I can be like, I didn't see it. So like my brain gets to go crazy.
There's been a representation that Nintendo has officially put in their trailers where it appears that a character that appears to be Ganondorf is going to be coming back. In fact, we literally hear this character speak in the trailer.
Is it like the
So believe it or not, it's a little bit more human.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in fact, when I first heard it, it's in my trailer reaction video that I did for the channel, but when I first heard it, I was kind of like, oh, that's how Ganondorf sounds.
Actually voiced by Paul Giamatti. Did you know that?
No, don't say that. I think it was actually, some people are guessing that it might be voiced by a guy from like a D&D podcast or something
really?
like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
But anyway, it's very like, rise, my children.
Sounds
it's like
just
that.
like Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, I know,
That's
I was
almost
thinking.
word for word. I thought he was here.
He's right over there.
Yeah.
But so if their goal is to bring Ganon/Ganondorf back, they've been somewhat. Koga's been defeated in Breath of the Wild, but as you pointed out, do you know what? I don't know if I've ever gone back to the Yiga Clan hideout post defeating Koga.
Okay.
Like, are there still Yiga hanging out there or not?
Yeah, they still attack you. I mean,
Oh, really?
Yeah, they still
Okay.
like because
So they're still living
you defeat
on.
them, and then they're mad, so you get attacked maybe even
They get
more.
stronger.
So
They get stronger, and now that right-hand man who actually was the muscle,
Yeah.
it maybe we could assume is kind of in charge.
So jumping to what we wanted, so how are they going to be represented in Tears of the Sun?
How are they going to be represented in Tears of the Kingdom?
Yeah,
Tears of the Sun's a movie, isn't it?
Yeah, with Bruce Willis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Bruce Willis.
And will they at all? Actually, I hope he's doing well right now.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Isn't he a little? He's maybe under the weather right now. I
Yeah.
think. But could they be if we decide right here in this episode that for now they are the way that Ganondorf comes back because they've worked their magic and they've done their thing?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get from Master Koga being defeated to possibly actual Ganondorf properly resurrected?
So I mean, I just want to talk about what I think the plot will be.
Yeah.
So I think it's a kind of a tried and true plot, which will be he comes back, he sees the joke that they are as a
interesting.
group, because really, I mean, they can't even master their own power. Ganon would want nothing to do with them. Like you have a speck of what, like he'll take the Guardians. I'm sure they'll be the villains again.
Yeah, there's going to be some Guardians, but like also Ganondorf.
How does he get his army? Is he just like, hey,
He has like the Bokoblins and the Lizalf, all the bad guys do like kind of pledge allegiance to him.
Yeah, okay, so he's got an army.
Mhm.
I think how I would write it if I was in charge of the plot, I always like it when joke characters from the first game become something that you have to heavily rely on in the second. So
Okay.
I think Link will have to become Yiga.
Whoa,
Yeah,
you're making my mind melt.
Because like say the Sheikah slate's broken, okay?
Okay.
They have the ability to use the powers without the state. I know there's
The
like
slate,
some DNA
okay.
or something in there,
Yeah.
but like I think it would be cool that he has to train underneath them and become, because like, hey, if they have power to release him, maybe they have power to help us put him back.
That's a heck of a what if. I like it.
And so like I think they have a cool enough outfit to where you could clearly put the skin on Link. You know what I mean? And he
Oh, wouldn't that be trippy?
yeah, and so
That would be emotional for him to have to do something like that. Well, maybe he still
But,
wears
like-
his Sheikah. I don't know.
and I don't know if Zelda ever, or like, you know, the creators ever want like him to have to associate with the bad people. Again, like once you have them assassinating people's wives, you really have them in the villain camp.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Nintendo will like want that for his story.
Mhm.
But if I was writing it, I would say like there has to at least be a chunk where he has to infiltrate, become one of, and learn from them. Because I think Ganon will come back. He'll smack them all around for being a joke after they're like, we did it. We brought you back. And he's like, great, I'm all powerful. I don't
Guess
need
what?
you.
Actually, I have monsters.
Yeah. And he's like, you guys are a joke. And then they have to rekindle their relationship with the remaining Sheikah.
Well, it's interesting.
Come back together, and then Link will be the tie of like, look, he is no good for anyone. We had to come together last time in order to stop him, and like we can't do this separate. Like
So Dan, I love where you're going with this.
that's how I think the Yiga will be represented in the next game.
Interesting. There is still like the Zonai that I think will be represented in the next game. They're like all the ancient sculptures that are in Breath of the Wild. We have I don't personally have any real idea of what their allegiance is or anything like that. I think the Zonai predate the Sheikah.
Sure.
And so I think his literal monstery hand that we kind of see him have, I think his new powers are going to come from the Zonai, but I really don't know. But this idea of the Sheikah and the Yiga needing to resolve and and become, I guess, what we maybe would call legacy Sheikah again.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
And I think that's if I got to write it.
Yeah.
I mean, especially because I don't think Nintendo will have a Breath of the Wild 3 or whatever this is called 3. But I think if you're going to wrap it up, I think with it really starting with the separation of the Sheikah and Yiga, I think a nice book ending is they have to come back together.
Yeah.
To
I love it.
Seal them up.
I love it. I think that's a great message. That's cool.
Yeah, well.
To seal them up. Love it. Yeah. Yeah. And I also like your observations of, I didn't even think about this. Ganondorf coming back and being disappointed with the Yiga.
Without a doubt.
Like they were talented enough to open the door, but that's about it.
And and it's kind of a common thing, just like the big baddie, like I did it, I freed you, give me all the power I've ever wanted, and you're like, you're a weakling, like you're a joke. I got so many other things, and just then the betrayal, the betrayal of the Yiga again, like no matter what they do, like.
Well, okay, that might be their motivation.
Yeah.
If it's a double negative betrayal,
yeah.
Then they go, wait, maybe we've oh my gosh, we've committed the last 10,000 years, we've committed our lives, our passion, our reason to exist for this idiot.
And then Zelda can have the speech of undoing what the king did. Like, I'm so sorry that we cast you all aside. It was wrong. You guys are super important. Like, can we all please work together?
And you could even have a couple that are like, oh, you need us now. But
yeah, and of course, and like, I'm sure there's going to be some discord, because it's not like she's going to have the speech and everyone's going to be great.
Yay!
But like, that's how I would like to see them brought into this next game.
Cool. I love it.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know, because I have watched the 3 trailers.
Sure.
My rule with Tears of the Kingdom is I'm not doing any. We are literally doing a theory right now, but like I'm not watching any like YouTube theory videos. I'm not watching like the deep dives of like every little detail we found in the trailer. Even though I love to do that kind of stuff, for Tears of the Kingdom, I'm only watching the official trailer releases from Nintendo, and I'm making my own observations.
Got it.
And obviously, there's a little bit of dialogue or conversation in the community, but other than that, that's my level. I have noticed a strangely like lacking amount of Sheikah in these trailers.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what that means yet. There's not. I don't even know if I've seen like an Impa or anything like that.
Okay.
And we also haven't technically seen any shrine entries in these trailers yet.
Are we sure they're going to do the shrine model again?
We aren't. In fact, many people are thinking. We definitely know that there's some like stuff up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a lot of airplay.
Yeah.
In this one, and some people are hoping, maybe it's just wishful thinking, but like these kind of like floating island things might become more like classic dungeons or something like that.
Okay.
We'll
Do you
see.
think we'll see a reemergence of the Loftwings?
I would love that.
Wouldn't
I don't know, unless they're really hanging on to that one. It's definitely no representation in the trailer or anything.
They just all shoot out of the volcano like, we've been here the entire time.
Or maybe you go up high enough that they finally come down. Because technically when you leave Skyward Sword, the culture up there, the sky people or whatever, kind of some of them stay.
Yeah.
And Link goes down. It's very vague at the end of Skyward Sword, but the implication is that like Link and a few folks go down to the actual land, which at that point in the story is a mystery.
Yeah.
Like the concept of land even existing doesn't exist in Skyward Sword. And
yeah.
So when he goes through the clouds, it's like, what's happening? There's a whole world down here. So I guess we could say that the Loftwings stayed up there. So
Sure.
maybe in Tears of the Kingdom, you go up high enough that you can bring them down. But now we're really getting out there.
I know. I just like the Loftwings.
I think they're awesome.
And then that would
I love
also
more
go
of them.
against my theory that the Loftwings are the ancestors of the Rito, even though apparently in Wind Waker they were the ancestors of the Zora.
Yeah.
Well, not even ancestors.
They,
A magical
like,
zap changed them
evolved
all
them.
into one thing.
Indeed.
So that's just my thoughts, theories. And
I love
emotions.
it. I think I will say this. I think there's going to be heavy play on the Zonai in this next one, but
There
I
has
think
to be. I mean,
yeah.
to leave such a open-ended
yeah.
question mark, like it demands answers.
I
right?
love I love that if the Sheikah and the Yiga are represented in Tears of the Kingdom. I love this pitch that you just pitched me.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, with that, I think we should get out of here.
Let's do it. Let's wrap it up.
Dan, if people want to find you and your show, how can they do that?
Hi.
By the way, you're actually the way things worked out. You're an official cast member this season at AZP. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
you
is kind
told
of
me.
cool. But
I feel-
you also still make
This is the closest to Saturday Night Live I'm gonna get. Just as a cast member on the 6-5 Media and Another Zelda podcast.
Season 6.
Yeah. You should do like an intro where it's just like
Da-da-da,
yeah.
da-da-da,
Like, Saturn AZP.
We have so many-
featuring, and then just like an announcer
Dan
come through,
McCoy.
and like a photo.
Little
of me
thumbs
just,
up.
Nice.
Oh my gosh!
Or like I'm
we
in a
gotta
bar
have
just
a wild
I'm
saxophone.
taking a drink like I didn't see the photographer.
Yeah.
They're like,
oh, hi! Oh, you're here.
oh, like you caught me so candidly.
Yeah,
no,
but if they want to find your other show, show.
our other show. So we do a podcast called Fan Fiction, Fan FANFIX-TION. It is where we talk about season 1 was video games, season 2, which is going to be airing fairly soon, if not already airing when
As
this
of
comes out.
when this posts, it should be out already.
It should be out already. Yep.
Yeah, so go check it out.
Yeah, please check it out. We're talking about movies this season, so it's got to be trilogies. That's the big thing. It's got to be a franchise. It's got to be
okay.
3. We got to be selective because there's a lot of movies out there.
I was lucky enough to be a guest in your season opener, and we did Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah, super excited about it. So please come find me and Matt over there. We're just hanging out waiting for you.
Cool. You can find me personally on Twitter and Instagram at Raptor Paint. The show is Another Zelda Pod on Twitter and Another Zelda Podcast on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook and all the other things by just basically searching Another Zelda Podcast. But if you are so inclined, go to our actual website, anotherzeldapodcast.com, where we have tons of blog articles that our team has written. We have a little bit of extra content. I put up some I learned I learned about a year ago that you can embed, at least you can do this with Spotify as well, but I have Apple Music. You can embed playlists into websites. So I've been building Zelda themed playlists.
Beautiful.
And so if you go to the fun stuff tab, you can go and actually subscribe to these playlists and they'll dynamically
Nice.
update. We actually have people already like listening to them.
Oh, that's cool.
One's based on just general cool covers. One's based on kind of like a workout playlist. So like it's really uppity. It's like some of like the techno remixes of Zelda games.
Nice.
And then the third one, which is actually the one that I listen to the most, is focused on like I titled it The Wind Worker.
Ooh.
And it's because it's like a low key study.
Just getting some work
Yeah,
done.
a lot of Zelda and chill in there and stuff like that. So that's always
Zelda
a lot of
and
fun.
chill. I like that.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Those are a great line of albums. But anyway, that's it.
We're done.
Dan?
I feel like the Yiga has been represented, and I hope you learned something about him. But there's still so much more. Like I wish like this could be almost another hour because like really like the swords that they use have representation. Like we didn't even get into the bananas.
Oh my gosh, we forgot about the bananas.
We didn't even touch.
I have that in my notes.
Well,
I mean, I don't know. We're at the end of the episode, but yeah, for some reason they love bananas, and of course it's a fun. I think it's like a goofy thing. Oh, I wonder if that's. And you remember there was like soldiers in World War II that got lost in the mountains and lived only off bananas for a couple years.
Maybe
there were like Japanese soldiers that weren't told World War II was finished, and they literally lived off bananas.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like a slight connection to that, but bananas are healthy.
It's supposed to be the Sheikah too, because you can give bananas
like bananas
to
as well.
Monk Masiota. And like the monk goes like, "Ooh, bananas!" So it's not specifically Yiga. It is the Sheikah. I think in general are kind of banana crazy.
Yeah, there's a whole conversation to be had about that monk, and maybe the monk goes back so far that I think all of those Sheikah monks are like from the 10,000 years ago kind of thing.
They look like they're 10,000 years old. That's
indeed,
for sure.
Indeed. Wow. Well, this conversation will be something that probably continues on as we go through our future seasons. And Dan, I'll see you in a couple episodes when we talk about when we do the 10 more questions from a new Zelda fan.
I cannot wait. Don't forget, guys, I do a Kermit the Frog impression, and it's pretty cool.
There it is. All right, I'll see you then.
All right.